Hi, Saumya. Good morning. And thank you so much for being a part of this series. You have been one of my earliest clients. And if I have to walk back in time and think about how I remember you, I think you are this one woman who always used to lead all financial conversations in the family. And also, you were somebody who was extremely averse to the equity markets in the beginning. But before we get to that, why don't you let our audience know what have you been doing over the last 10 years, 11 years actually, after we graduated from college, and also a little bit focus on how has your journey with money been over the last 10 years, ever since you've started working?
Yeah. So I mean, we've over the last 10 years, like you said, I've been working for 11 years. I worked for Godrej for a significant chunk of that period, and then moved to Flipkart. Very recently, 3 months back, I have relocated to Dubai because my spouse moved here. And probably the first time in my life that I'm not working, I decided to take a few months break. So we will talk more about that. But my journey with money, yeah, so my journey with money has been fairly conservative when I started. Like you said, I've been leading a lot of financial conversations in my house, but I have also been fairly risk averse when it comes to investments. So savings was ingrained in me. Investments was not something that I used to do. So first initial years when you're straight out of college, you've just started working, is all about was all about meeting your immediate liabilities. Your education loans, setting up your own marriage fund, all of that. And then post that, when career was moving and then your immediate liabilities were over, that's when you start seeing some surplus. uh, and my way of dealing with that surplus was, initially was always about, let's put this in FD, or let's buy some gold and store it. It's a very traditional way of dealing with money when I started my journey, and it has evolved a lot, of course, up, and then you came in and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Soumya, we'll talk about the traditional forms of investing in a bit. But what I also remember is that you had taken real estate exposure very early in life. So, at
Yeah.
that point in time, let's say, 2, 3 years having started working, getting that surplus out, what triggered you into thinking and believing that real estate should be one form of your core investment portfolio?
Yeah. See, again, I think it was a bit traditional way of thinking, because whenever in your families you talk about investment, your typical investments are gold, it's a house. For us, house was never a necessity because we didn't need a roof on our head that ways, but it was more of an investment, like you said. You have surplus, let's block a house. It takes care of your probably retirement because the rental income will keep coming in. So it was purely from that point of view. And then real estate offered some sort of security because we understood that a little bit more than, say, equity markets, etc. And it was also, when it's a tangible proof of your investments right there, nothing can happen to it, versus an equity market, which I didn't understand at all at that point of time. Not just equity, even debt, whatever. I mean, any sort of instrument apart from your traditional FDs, gold, and real estate, I didn't understand that much. I was not exposed to it that much. So this looked like the safest investment to me at that point of time, saying, "Ye to kahin nahi jayega. This is not going to go anywhere," and
Yeah.
that's how it. Yeah, that's how it
So,
happened.
Soumya, this whole mindset of traditional investing, I mean, do you think it's a societal conditioning issue, or was it purely lack of awareness about other avenues which we had not experimented with? Also, I know, I mean, when we were growing up, a lot of families were not exposed to financial investments like that, right? It was
Yeah.
mostly investing was mostly about immovable assets or fixed assets, tangible assets that we could see. Do you think
Yeah.
that across the spectrum, this is a bringing issue, or this is an awareness issue which we are alone responsible for ourselves?
It's a mix of both, to be really honest. I mean, a part of it is behavioral, where you are risk averse from the start. So even if you have awareness, a little bit of awareness, and I remember you came in and you, initial few years, you were trying to explain to me, and I understood the instruments that you were trying to explain, but I was so risk averse that even after understanding them, I was still not willing to take that risk. And so that part, I think, is more to do with how you've grown up. And I grew up in a service class, middle class family where savings was so important. And I think our parents' generation was still in that phase where they had to build houses for
Yeah.
necessity for themselves. And so no fault of theirs for this value system. But I think our generation or this generation has moved past that, and we can be more, we can take a bit more risk, but that's not something that was ingrained in us. So yes, part of the problem is the conditioning. The second part, of course, is the lack of awareness. So I, for example, did not even have the awareness about what are the tools and how much risk do they pose. So I know that equity poses a risk, but within equity also, how do I manage my risk? How do I manage between an equity investment and a debt investment to in a ratio that's comfortable for me? At what age am I open to taking more risk versus say 10 years down the lane when I want to be slightly more risky? So all of this discussion or this understanding did not exist also. So it's an issue of both,
Yeah.
lack of awareness as well as conditioning.
I also think that this is not something that we talk about a lot in our education systems, or even within the families, not just in schools and colleges, but even within families. We do talk a lot about savings, but we don't talk about, let's say, the real impact of inflation. Or
Yeah,
I mean, even now, even within the industry, everybody talks about returns, that you can invest in this instrument and you'll get that much return. But there
yeah,
are very few people who really talk about the risk of and experiencing that risk. So knowing
yeah,
what risk is one thing. We have academically learned about what risk is, but I think experiencing that risk event is a completely different thing. So I totally am with you on that point, Soumya. So I know that for now you follow a very, very structured, goal oriented kind of an investment journey, right? So
yeah.
as compared to when I think about you 7 years, 7, 8 years back, what changed that approach? What triggered? Was it a life event, or was it a conversation that triggered? How did the change of approach trigger within you?
Yeah. So I'll break this journey into two parts, because for me there were two instances which triggered my evolution into this goal-based planning. One was just first step that I took with you was, I think, investments in the first place, moving away from the standard FDs, etc., and just investing. And I think goal-based planning is something that we did much later, but first step was just start investing. And I think what triggered there was something that you said, which suddenly struck with me. So lifelong you grow up listening that you have to save, 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 and what you came and told me is that don't lose money. And that suddenly shifted, suddenly when somebody, it's essentially the same thing, somebody telling you to save more versus somebody telling you to stop losing money. Essentially you were not telling me that if you're investing, if you're saving 30% of your income, then you need to make it 40%. No, you were not telling me that. You were saying whatever you're saving, just don't put it in places where you are actually not saving, you're losing money. And that, to a risk averse person like me, that made the trigger, saying, oh no, I'm not saving, I'm actually losing money, and she's right. And that's where I started my investment journey. And then a few years later, the second event that changed my thinking was, I think, when my son was born, which is about 3.5 years back. And I think that's when I started doing this whole goal based planning, because that's when I think a lot of, before that our goals were primarily just managing our retirement and ensuring that our travel, all of that, our dreams are intact. But when he came in, suddenly a whole horizon got added, and I felt there is a need to, plan slightly more systematically, in order to give him the life that we want to give, for his education, our retirement, of course, our holidays, everything, for medical. And then suddenly, also another thing that started happening was, even our parents were growing old. So over the last 5 6 years, I also felt the need that we need to take care of them also. So a lot of those, like, our goals expanded suddenly, from parents to child to our own self. And that's when I felt that now just investments is also not enough. It needs to be, actual goal based planning as to who and what needs how much. So So those were the two, I think, life changing events for me.
Yeah, I think it evolves over time as a number of variables that complicate your lives increase.
Yeah,
I think the need for structuring everything also increases.
yeah,
Having said that, I've also met people who not everybody needs it, and it totally depends on the stage of life at which you are and the kind of questions you're trying to answer within your
yeah,
head. Right. So you just mentioned a while back while you were introducing yourself that you've moved to Dubai 3 months back and you've taken a conscious break from
yeah,
work. And
yeah,
of course, you're planning to resume work very shortly. Now, I
yeah.
think was it the structure approach that you took that gave you the freedom to exercise this choice and the comfort? Let me call it comfort to exercise this choice. Did it help you in thinking that okay, let me take a 3 month break? It's not really going to impact a lot of things for me.
Yeah, yeah. So that's so what happened was, like you said, I decided to voluntarily take a 3 months break. I thought it's been 13 years, and I didn't take a break when my son was born, and so on. This was a good opportunity. I was moving into a new place. Uh, Even though it was a conscious decision to take a break, I'll be lying if I say I've not had, nights when I've not been able to sleep. Anxiety of not having your own credit card, your paycheck, and moving to a different country is altogether different ballgame because unlike moving to another city in India or taking a break in India, you still have your bank accounts, you have your access to basic things like driving car. Here, I had absolutely nothing. So suddenly, for somebody who's been working for so long and been so independent in paying her own bills, etc., etc., suddenly this level of dependence was extremely discomforting. That is one. Second is for somebody who's risk averse like me, I would have had a knee jerk reaction to such a career break. I would have immediately stopped all my, leisure spends. I would have cut down on a lot of things, which would have then sent me in a spiral because then it impacts you emotionally. That I used to watch X movies. I used to eat out. I'm not doing as much of that now, and so on. But the reason I did not have a knee jerk reaction to this break and I was able to, I think, navigate it is because I knew the whole plan in my head was very, very clear, saying how much does this 3 month break impact me, and hence I don't really need to, stop living my life. I can cut down on a few things, yes, but I can still continue to enjoy my life so as to not let this, to be able to enjoy the break that I so consciously took a call to take. And a lot of women, Shruti, uh, sometimes don't have the choice of taking this break. They have to, when
Yeah.
like when my son was born, I know how many, I think pretty much every day I used to have this thought saying, should I take a few months break? My son needs me. I know I have turned down a few opportunities which would have paid me more, which would have, but because they involved a certain amount of hours to be put in or travel, you take that call because your child needs you at that moment. And I think I anticipated all of these when I came to you and I reached out to you saying that I need a goal based planning, because I was able to anticipate all of these things are going to happen. That if my curve has been really, really steep in terms of my career, there will be a time of few years when my child is young when that curve will flatten for some time, and consciously so. Uh, and this goal based planning just helps you prepare for that, so that
Yeah.
it doesn't impact you emotionally. I think it's more emotionally comforting for women to have that safety net.
Right, right.
Anything else?
So I think you rightly pointed out that you have taken this call very consciously, but so many women are not able to exercise this, such decisions on their own. For
Yeah,
example, I know many families where women have to go on a longer maternity break because they don't have the ecosystem to
yeah,
support, bringing up a newborn baby and managing work. I mean, a lot of women, otherwise also, so a lot of times when they have taken, let's say, 2 to 3 year break and they want to
yeah,
come back to work, they have to start at a lower pay. There's a very massive discussion that's always there about women getting underpaid as compared to men,
yeah,
glass ceilings. And a lot of these circumstances are very beyond our control, right? So while you have made this conscious choice because you were having that safety net in your head, comfort in your mind, that even if I'm not investing for 6 months, it's not really going to impact a lot of goals in my life. I mean,
yeah,
like that, because end of the day, the kind of surplus you are investing and growing over a period of time, taking benefit of compounding is going to take care of it. But how do you think other women who are not consciously able to take this decision can navigate this whole situation of, not having, number one, as many working years as men do, number
Yeah.
two, not earning as much as men do, but also outliving men. So if you look at the life expectancy data, you will see that women on an aggregate level tend to outlive their spouses or men in general, right? So women are the one who need to think about retirement planning a lot more than men do, right? But that's not the case. So how do you think those women should start thinking about this whole broad scheme of things in their lives?
I think my first biggest advice will be start early. I think a lot of us wait, for these life events, like you said, because of lack of awareness or social conditioning, uh, to actually do or take these initiatives. And when you're 25, you're 30, 35 probably, you don't think of when you will be 60. A lot of times we don't.
Yeah.
So my advice is, and I wish somebody had told me this when you tried to, but I wish, but I wish I had started literally 10 years back. The day I got my first check, I wish I had started back then. Uh, if it's very important to understand that just savings is not going to take care of that investment or that planning that you need in future. That's one. Secondly, also a lot of times what happens is, especially if you're married, and you have a spouse who's earning well, a lot of times we become okay with the planning that is being done by men. Obviously, because we rely on their intelligence or whatever involvement in financial decisions. But I really think women need to participate a little bit more, because, and I'll give you a small example. In our case, both of us were equally good or equally bad with financial planning. But the fact that when we were thinking of goal based planning, it occurred to me and not to my husband. The reason was, when I was about to have my son and I was pregnant, I could envisage the next 3-4 years of my career, because I had already started sensing that I will not be able to give as much time. I'll have pressure to give time to my child also. My career could probably take a hit. My salary could probably take a hit. And these thoughts probably will not come to a man of the house till the time that moment has arrived when your wife has to take a hit. But I was able to foresee it. And so, just for sheer that sense of being able to see your own challenges, which probably your spouse will not be able to see as early as you do, I think women need to be involved as a family together in these discussions and these planning. So yeah, first advice, start early, and second, be more involved in families discussions of where should our investments be.
So, Soumya, my experience with this is that a lot of families that I'm talking to, I'm seeing a lot of dichotomy in the way things are operating. I mean, there are a bunch of family like yours where the women is steering the conversation and starting this internal discussion with a spouse about, wanting a more serious investing journey. Whereas on the other hand, there are families where the women who are also working and are of similar profile as ours, but are just not interested in getting involved, right? So, my question is that what do you think is leading to this dichotomy in this space? I mean, why are there some women who are not taking this seriously, whereas there's some other women who are actually leading the discussions in the family?
Yeah. See, I see there could be two issues. One is that they've probably tried, and the family environment is such that it's slightly more male dominated, where the financial decisions have traditionally stayed with the males of the family. Uh, that's something where which can go into a different discussion zone. We'll not touch upon that, but that's a societal perspective change that will have to be bringing, not just for financial discussion, but in general life. The other bit which we can talk about would be where women don't have interest in taking part in these discussions, and that's something that I think we need to discuss a bit more in detail. In fact, I would like to give you an example. So my mother-in-law is a homemaker. My father-in-law was always the bread earner in the family, and she was always a homemaker. But 80% of the financial discussions and decisions in my household are taken by my mother-in-law. uh, and simply because she was coached when she was growing. She comes from a business family, and in her family, all the decisions were taken by the whole family. The family would sit together, the women and the men of the house, and they would decide. And yes, their instruments of investment would be traditional, because 50 years back or 40 years back, that's how it was. But the women had active role in saying, let's invest in gold for X child's marriage, or let's do, or let's buy property in the name of this son or that son, whatever. But women had that say, and it was valued. And so she took that active interest in participation. I think that's something that women have to overcome on their own. And it's really critical for our own journey, Shruti, because uh, everybody likes to believe that everything will go on perfectly fine, but we don't know what life throws at us. We are seeing so many so many families splitting. We see so many, we lose people untimely. You don't know what contingencies life throws at you. And I wish no woman has to be in a position where she's clueless about, where my food for tomorrow is going to come from, or where my child's education is going to come from. And not because of just lack of resources, but also because she doesn't know how to navigate it. uh, and just for that, I feel that every woman needs to start taking some interest. And I think it's a mental block, because traditionally we've seen men take part in this, so we will deal with certain things. And even women who are working have restricted themselves to just bringing in the money, and then letting the planning stay with the husbands. So let the planning be with the husband. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're together working as a team, I think great. But be aware of what's happening and
Yeah.
question once in a while. For all you know, you might have an insight which just ends up helping your husband or your family also, right? Because not everybody
Yeah.
knows everything 100%. So just be
Yeah.
aware and be, slightly more active. Take baby steps, I think.
I
Nobody's
think,
saying that.
Soumya, your example of your mother-in-law is a stark departure from how families at that time used to be,
Yeah.
right? Um, I mean, even in my circle, I don't see a lot of women of our age taking
Yeah.
that active interest, right? Do you think that in your network that trend is changing? You've seen your mother-in-law taking an active interest in whatever instruments and capacity that she could, and I think that has flown down in your spouse's family, and you can see that evidently how she has managed and taken decisions around finances. But I think that's a very minority set of families where things have operated like that. In your circle and network of people of your age, do you think these conversations around investments, money, financial independence has started to happen amongst women?
Uh, it has just about started, Shruti, but it's not where I think it needs to be. So today also, when I'm sitting with five, set of families who are all friends, uh, I would probably be the only one, or maybe one other female, who will talk about saying, where are you investing these? That's not even a conversation that women are having. The conversations would be very different. So yes, those conversations are not happening.
Yeah.
If at all they happen in the circle of men, separately somewhere, on a smoke break or somewhere. But yeah, more and more women need to start talking about it, and nobody needs to be a finance ninja to understand and these things. Start with basics. Like I said, take baby steps. Just start with understanding. And I think that one phrase that you said, savings doesn't mean that you're not losing money. You are losing money, and that is a route that I think we need to tell more and more women about that, because that's what will register in their, or make an impact in their perspectives. That's what I feel.
Absolutely. So, Soumya, I know you've already given that small piece of advice of starting early. But apart from that, if you were to look back at your own journey, what's the second piece of advice that you would want to give to a younger Soumya? This is more to just inspire the younger women in the fraternity to start thinking about money the way they don't think right now. So I'm just trying to get it from you how you would have panned out your journey differently. Or let me rephrase my question. Uh, Maybe what's one good and one not so good financial decision that you have taken, which has created significant impact on the way you are where you are today?
Yeah. So I think one good thing was savings itself. because I think that's a value that was ingrained in us as children. So savings was the good thing that I did. All the investment that I'm doing today is essentially coming out of that. Second, something that I wish I had done earlier, like I said, I wish I had started early. But also, I wish I had taken slightly more interest and building my own awareness about everything that exists. Even if tomorrow I don't want to invest, still, I think it's good to be aware of what are the options available to you, and then make an informed choice. So I think those two things I'll say.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Soumya. I think those two are very critical and useful pieces of advice, something that I have also ignored when I started. So, like you said, you don't need to be a finance ninja. I'm telling you, I have been a finance student through and through, and yet I have not taken the best of financial decisions in the first few years of my working life. And I mean, I think it's a all pervasive problem. Everybody, even irrespective of whether they're investing, not investing, saving, not saving, have this money question in their mind, which goes unanswered, which
Yeah.
which they feel insecure about. So I think this conversation is going to inspire many young women who have just started their journey to wealth creation, earning money, saving, and investing. And we hope to catch up very soon with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'll be really happy if this influences more and more women to take active participation in their wealth creation journey. Thanks a lot to you and your team, and hope you guys keep doing the good job.
Thanks. Thank you so much.